The stream had stopped, so I had to. Go back on the record. Before we start with staff, Mr. Shu. In case number 9074, there's a different OPC witness, Mr. Fitzhenry, and he makes a recommendation regarding a disallowance. Let me pull it up. Yes, Mr. Fitzhenry recommends in case number 9708 that the commission disallow. I turned it off and turned it back on, and we are maybe streaming, are we not? Okay. Back off the record, sorry. Okay, yeah, there I am. Okay. Mr. Fitzhenry recommended the commission disallow the recovery of the total cost variance of 26 STRIDE projects totaling approximately $7.5 million. So I would like to issue a bench data request to OPC. I'd like to know what percentage, like I took that and divided it by the revenue requirement, I think, in someone else's testimony, is related to STRIDE, and I got a percentage that represented 38%, I believe, of the STRIDE revenue requirement. But if you could please confirm that percentage for me. So I'm looking for
so the percentage of the cost disallowance he recommended in the rate case, a percentage of?
What percentage disallowance is that of the STRIDE revenue requirement?
Okay.
Your Honor, if I may be heard on behalf of the company?
You have an objection to that?
I don't have an objection. I do have a couple of questions for the bench, if that's appropriate.
Okay. Probably
my-
not, but go
My
ahead.
understanding is that the stride surcharge for our proposed stride 3 plan does not include the cost of those 26 challenge projects. So
Okay.
I'm not sure what the relevance is of pursuing this information in this case. I'd also note that.
Would you agree with me that to the extent some amount is disallowed in stride 2, it reflects on WGL's performance, and that is relevant in this case?
Given the bar for relevance, yes, I would agree with that. But
Any other?
I just reserve the company's rights to react to what Your Honor does with the information.
You always have the right to appeal.
Yes, we do.
Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, staff.
Staff would like to call to the stand Staff Witness Tanika Alexander and ask that she be sworn in, please.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly, under the penalties of perjury, that the statements made in this matter today are the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name, spell your first and last name, and give us your business address.
Tanika Alexander, T-A-N as in Nancy, Y-E-K-A. Last name is A as in Apple, L-E-X-A-N-D-E-R. My business address is 6 St. Paul Street, Baltimore, Maryland, 21202. You're welcome.
Good afternoon, Ms. Alexander. Please state for the record your position with the Maryland Public Service Commission.
I am an auditor in the Accounting Investigations Division.
Ms. Alexander, do you have in front of you the direct testimony of Tanika R. Alexander for case number 978, dated August 28, 2023?
Yes, I do.
Does that document consist of a title page, a table of contents, 7 pages of text, followed by exhibits A and B, for a total document count of 28 pages?
Yes.
25 pages, including the cover.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Ms. Alexander, did you author this document or did you supervise the preparation of its content?
I'm the author.
At this time, I wish to ask the court to identify the direct testimony of Tanika Alexander as staff exhibit number 4.
5. 4? Yes. So marked.
Thank you. Ms. Alexander, do you have any corrections or deletions to the table of contents, ma'am?
I do have a correction on the table of contents. Revenue requirement is listed as page 44. That should be page 4.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Alexander. Do you have any other deletions, insertions, or corrections to make to this document?
I do not.
Ms. Alexander, if I were to ask you these same questions today under oath, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, Your Honor, I ask that the court move staff exhibit number 4 into evidence.
Any objections? Staff Exhibit 4 is admitted.
At this time, I tender the witness for cross-examination.
No questions, Your Honor.
No questions, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Staff wishes to call to the stand staff witness Evan Thomas.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm under the penalties of perjury that the statements made in this matter today are the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your first and last name, and give us your business address.
My name is Evan Thomas, Evanthhomas, and my business address is 6 St. Paul Street, Baltimore, Maryland, 21202.
Good afternoon, Mr. Thomas. Please state for the record your position with the Maryland Public Service Commission.
I am a regulatory economist in the Telecommunications, Gas, and Water Division.
Mr. Thomas, do you have in front of you the direct testimony of Evan Thomas for case number 9708, dated August 28, 2023?
Yes.
Does that document consist of a title page, a table of contents, and 10 pages of testimony?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas, did you author this document or did you supervise the preparation of its content?
Yes.
At this time, I ask the court to identify the direct testimony of Evan Thomas as staff exhibit number 5.
So marked.
Mr. Thomas, do you have any deletions, insertions, or corrections to make to the document?
No.
Mr. Thomas, if I were to ask you these same questions today under oath, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
At this time, Your Honor, I ask that this court move staff exhibit number 5 into evidence.
Any objection? Staff Exhibit 5 is entered.
At this time, I tender the witness for cross-examination.
No questions.
No questions, Your Honor.
No questions, Your Honor.
No questions, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Your Honor, staff would like to call to the stand Mr. John Clementson.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm under penalties of perjury that the statements made in this matter today are the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name, spell your first name and last name, and give us your business address.
John Clementson, John Clementson, Deputy Chief Engineer at the Commission, and my business address is 6 St. Paul Street, Baltimore, Maryland, 21202.
Mr. Clementson, do you have before you a document entitled Direct Testimony and Exhibits of John J. Clementson, dated August 28, 2023, consisting of 21 pages of testimony and several attachments?
Yes, I do.
And is this document both in a public and confidential version?
Yes.
And was this document prepared by you or under your supervision?
Yes, it was.
Your Honor, I'd like to mark this as staff exhibit number 8 and 8C for the confidential version.
How'd we get to 8? What happened to 6 and 7?
Excuse me. It was pre-filled out on my sheet. Staff exhibit number 6 and 6C. You also have a document entitled The Sir Rebuttal Testimony Exhibits of John J. Clementson, dated September 19, 2023, consisting of 7 pages of testimony and an exhibit.
Yes.
And was this prepared by you or under your supervision?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd like to mark this as staff exhibit number 7.
So marked.
Mr. Clementson, do you have any corrections or deletions to either of these documents?
Yes. Sir rebuttal testimony, table of contents, conclusions are actually on page 7, not page 6.
And with this correction, do these documents constitute your testimony in this proceeding?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd like to move staff exhibits number 6 and 7 into evidence.
Any objection? Staff Exhibits 6, 6C, and 7 are admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. This witness is available for cross-examination.
No questions.
No questions, Your Honor.
No questions, Your Honor.
No questions, Your Honor.
No questions, Your Honor.
No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor. No questions
Clementson, did you review Mr. Larkin Connolly's rebuttal of your testimony?
Yes.
And it seemed like one of the things he said was that in Stride 2, you filed testimony saying that the company didn't quite achieve what it had proposed in Stride 1, so the plan in Stride 2 should be reduced accordingly. Do you remember that?
Yes.
So I think he was looking for a similar type testimony from you in this case because, again, WGL failed to achieve its targets. I think if you were here earlier, we're at 70 to 71% projected through the end of the year on Maine. So I think, not to put any words in Mr. Larkin Connolly's mouth, but I think he was looking for similar testimony from you that perhaps WGL should reduce their plan because they haven't been able to achieve what they've proposed in Stride 2. But you offered no such testimony.
That is correct.
Can you tell me why? You think their estimating has just gotten so much better? Is that why?
When you do the plan, obviously, we'd all like for them to hit what they say. They're going to do 100%, but obviously things do occur in the year. So that they have to make their best effort to go forward and make the mark. And obviously sometimes it just doesn't happen. And I felt this time go around that, the mileage was kind of the same as far as what they were proposing as last time. And this gave them the option that if some of the projects could not be accomplished, they had the ability to jump to another project.
Did you hear my questions about comparing WGL's rate of replacement and the costs associated therewith with other utilities?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Okay, because Mr. Dodge intimated that perhaps staff had actually performed that analysis in the previous, in Stride 2. Does that sound familiar to you at all?
I'd have to go back and double check, but I will default to that.
Do you think it's possible that you or someone else in staff compared WGL's replacement pace and costs with that of BG&E and Columbia Gas?
I believe it. Without going back and double check, I would have to do that for pure confirmation, but it sounds familiar.
And do you have an opinion on whether that information is at all relevant in this proceeding? I know it wasn't part of your testimony.
I would say, yes, it could be relevant.
I gather that when you review WGL's filings, I guess, where they say what they actually accomplished, you're checking that the amount that they spent was actually spent?
Correct.
You don't conduct any analysis of whether those cost overruns were reasonable, just that they happened?
Well, when you look at them, you're going to have cost overruns and you're going to have costs that come in underneath for the projects. And as you know, it kind of comes into this one big pie. I did not see anything in there as far as the information as presented that says that they were not prudently incurred. We have seen inflation go up. Cost of labor has gone up. Materials have definitely gone up. And as again with the paving and restoration, those fees have quite gone up depending on the various areas that you're in and their requirement changes.
But again, you're just confirming that those costs did in fact go up and the company paid them because they went up.
Correct.
You're not conducting any assessment on whether the company should take a step back and decide that those costs have increased at such a rate that it's no longer prudent to continue projects at that cost?
Well, if I was to look at that and it would withhold projects or mileage, I think one of the requirements is for Stride is to have an accelerated plan. So if we go back, does that automatically take them out of the acceleration make them non-eligible? Sorry, I shouldn't ask the question. But in my mind, that's what I was looking at, is, does that possibly take them out of stride and didn't make them not eligible anymore? I have to look at it from the aspect of safety, and to get the pipe out of the ground, the pipe in question out of the ground, obviously will provide more will make it safer than leaving it in there and just putting repairs to it. And that was my whole goal driving this.
Would you agree that at some point there could be such cost increases that it would not be reasonable to propose a new project?
Yes, that's quite possible. I mean, if inflation goes really through the roof.
Do you have anything to add on the cost of the individual service issue?
Yep.
You think that's reasonable? $24,000 per service, for an individual service is just what we can expect?
My guess is they're probably getting into areas where, I hate not to accuse anybody, but you kind of start with the things you can get the bigger chunks and the easier work. But now you're probably getting down to the point where they're into areas where it's going to be more labor intensive and things of that nature, so you will see additional costs for that, whether it be more hand digging or stuff for trenches, for depth and things of that nature, where they have to provide shoring. So.
How about the low pressure system issue and whether, it seems as though to me the commission has taken the position that low pressure systems need to be replaced. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
So would you be in favor of program 6 that replaces it by zone? Let me back up. Were you aware that under programs 2 and 4, the company was replacing low pressure with low pressure?
In certain areas, yeah, when they don't have the higher pressure to come in immediately to bring it up. So they would have to go in with the low pressure if it ranked out and their Optimane scores at a higher.
That's sort of an interim solution in your mind, though, if the commission wants them to replace low pressure
Yes,
systems?
I mean, the sort of nice thing is, yeah, it's kind of an interim, but if you've got the material replaced and hopefully, you pressure test it properly, you can always come back when that medium pressure gets within that range, and all you may have to do is add regulators to the system.
So the same pipe can be medium pressure and low pressure, you're saying?
Yes. It's just, they may have to do a little bit of pressure testing, but my guess is they probably pressure tested it at a higher rate so that they would already have the documentation available for that. That way they wouldn't have to go through an uprate process.
But you don't know for sure from talking to them?
No, not sure.
That reminds me, Mr. Dean, we entered his testimony as is, but you're going to get corrected, redacted testimony.
We'll
After-
provide you with information on the redactions as necessary.
You're going to provide me with corrected, redacted testimony after WGL provides you with that information.
Yes, Your Honor.
OPC witness Larkin Connolly also had some criticism of the service replacement outside of main replacement. I don't know if you reviewed his testimony, but are you aware of that criticism? Or are you aware?
You mean of the company or?
It's OPC's criticism of the company, that
Okay.
they're replacing services outside of, so there's some services that are connected
Right,
to
right,
the main.
yes. They have
And then there's
there's-
some they're just doing.
Right.
And I think he was criticizing the ones that they're just doing outside of, they're not related to the mains. Do you have an opinion on that?
To me, it's all connected. I mean, mains are services. I mean, the services are what are going to be closer to the customer. So in a sense, they're just as important as the mains. If there's issues with the services, they need to be addressed.
Any questions based on my questions?
No, Your Honor. Just one, Your Honor. Mr. Clementson, you, I believe in replying to the judge's question about the 24,000, approximately 24,000 for individual services replacement, you said you guess that they're, out there, I guess, in places where, labor costs are high, it might be high to get labor costs, or you have to dig trenches or something or other. You said you guessed. Do you know that for a fact, or is it just a...
No, I was not unable to dive into any DRs or anything of that nature. I just, from what I've seen in the past through my experience.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Your Honor, one quick line, if I may. Good afternoon, Mr. Clementson. A few moments ago, you were talking with the judge about the circumstance where under stride, low pressure is replaced with low pressure. And then the follow-up question was, if medium pressure gets close enough to that segment that's been replaced, low pressure to low pressure, then the company would be able to upgrade it to medium pressure. Is that correct?
Correct.
In that circumstance, the second circumstance, when the service goes from low pressure to medium pressure, what additional work is required of the company to make that happen in the circumstance where within the last 5 years, say, it's been low pressure to low pressure?
Okay. In that regards, it'll depend on how the system was pressure tested originally. If it was pressure tested to be able to handle the higher pressures when it was originally installed, you do no longer have to go through an uprate process. However, if you tested it according to your procedures for low pressure, where you cannot establish an MAOP for the medium or a higher pressure, then you have to go through an uprate process, which requires a plan. I think a minimum of 4 steps that you have to take, and you incrementally raise the pressure each time, and do a leak survey to make sure there's no leaks. And at that point, but however, prior to that, you have to do a leak survey before you start. You're probably going to have to take and put regulators in, which is going to get a little confusing or hairy at times, depending on when you do it. Because if you're low pressure and you put a regulator in, it's not necessarily going to work. So you have to kind of weigh that. But a regulator would have to be installed at at a certain time frame in this process.
How about work in the street?
If you refer to excess flow valves, that would be an interesting question because it's an uprate. And I don't think there's a requirement for the utility to have to install an excess flow valve if they're just doing an uprate. It's at the time of install, if the pressure is 10 pounds or greater, that they are required.
I was focused on a little different question. Is there a possibility in moving from low pressure to medium pressure that the company would have to open up the street again?
Yes, that could be a possibility, yes.
Thank you. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. That was our last witness, yes?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any other matters we need to deal with?
One thing, Your Honor, just wanted to clarify on, I guess, bench data request 7 to OPC.
Yes.
The 9704 Fitzhenry disallowance as a percent of stride revenue requirement. Were you referring to stride 2 or stride
Yes.
stride 2?
Stride 2.
And that's the yearly revenue requirement or like the total over the 5 years?
I believe it's whatever is being moved into the rate case.
Okay,
So
so
it's-
what's moved into, okay.
I don't know the last rate case you did, you know. When did you do the last rate
I'm not
case?
sure if the 26 projects were, our test year was 2022. I'm not sure. Presumably, they all were, the costs were associated, we're in 2022. So I don't think it's the whole 5 years, but I think it's worthy of checking that.
So
Do you suspect, as I do, that the revenue requirement type witness will know how to answer the question that I've asked?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you everyone for your attendance. This will obviate the need for us to reappear on Monday. Okay, got the briefing schedule. Look forward to them.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. We're off the record.